Who was the creepiest person you've ever seen or met? I was at the public library about 4 years ago doing schoolwork and a man came up and sat down at my table, staring at me. After easily 10 minutes, he asked me why I was wearing gold headphones, cheap but fun gold colored headphones, and then informed me that the royals back in medieval times used to make the peasants dig for gold because they were actually supernatural entities who ate it. By this point I'm shooting help me eyes at the librarians, who all ignore me. He talks for a bit longer and then pulls out a mask, like something you would wear on Halloween, and puts it on. Sits there, staring at me. Library security officer finally kicks him out because he refused to take the mask off. I leave the library easily 2 hours later and he's outside, waiting. He follows me about a block before I pull out my phone and threaten to call the police on him. He calls me a B and walks away. Used to be close friends with a guy who molested my other close friend. He also tried to start a cult by bringing us to Jesus through him. I have so many questions. Same. And I don't think I want any of them answered. Mega agreed. Okay, I have 2 stories, both involve me working. 1. I was at work and the really shifty person came in. He looked like if someone dipped a weasel in some fry grease then dried him with a towel. At this time I was taking orders from customers up front. At the time of taking his order he seemed really normal, so I silently scolded myself for judging people. As I was handing him order he leaned in really close and said, "I would love to see you naked and tied up." I went home early that day too. I was working drive-through, collecting payment from the customers while simultaneously taking orders. After I had finished giving this guy his change and was driving away, he said that he liked the way my voice sounded over the intercom and it gave him a boner. I was around 15 to 16 years old. I was holding my toddler nephew at my grandmother's Christmas party and my creeper uncle said "I guess name of nephew can't decide which one of your pillows he wants to lay on." I told him to go F himself. I told my mom later what happened and she flipped and asked if he did anything or said anything else. Turns out he had raped my mom when they were kids. Pretty effed up. My grandmother still doesn't acknowledge it happened, even when my mom asked her to before she died 3 years ago. People effing suck. My cousin wouldn't believe me when I explained my story about a family member and what they did when I was younger. I hate that your mom went through that. Take care. I'm sorry you did too. I hope you're doing okay. I believe you. There is this dude from my town. He talked to me and we became really close. He asked me to be his girlfriend and I didn't accept it, but I didn't reject him either. I told him I was going to think about it and it was difficult for me because of my anxiety and my time management. He stopped talking to me, even blocked me of social media. One night I felt I was getting chased on the street, so I walked faster to a crowded place and looked behind me and he was there trying to hide through the people. He's been talking to me and sending me messages since then, even telling me things like "I saw you yesterday with your father at X place. You look so beautiful with that clothes you had yesterday. I love when you use red lipstick and it creeps me out. File a police report." Few years ago, I was in a new city for some official work. The first night, I was just walking on the road, roaming around after the city slept. So I was walking up in this empty road and I saw a girl walking towards a bus stand in opposite direction. Dark empty road with minimal street light, just enough to see whether the person is girl or boy. 2 dudes following her. She stopped at the bus stop. These guys just looking at her and following her. As I came close by, she was looking at me once and at them. Everything normal and the guys standing just a few meters away. I saw her and she looked at me with these big tears eyes. I stood there scared shitless that what those guys may do, but I made it a point to stay there with her. They made some calls. Just then a city bus came and she boarded it. The guys also start walking towards the bus, so I start walking straight towards them, fast and with angry face. They stopped there while the bus left. The girl just mouthed "thank you" from the bus window. I started walking away again towards my hotel. Guys followed me for 1 street, but then left. I suppose. You're a good person. You very well could have saved her life. Once I was working, and the coworker that was there that day was on lunch. So I was completely alone. It was a small business. A creepy dude came in and basically cornered me, getting inches from me, talking about how hot I was, how he wanted to hook up, etc. I nervously told him I had a boyfriend and to please not talk to me like that. He did the generic "well, he doesn't have to know" response. Eventually, I was able to get behind the counter and he stopped following me and eventually left. About a week later, I was walking home from work because I didn't have a car at the time. And there he was. He spots me and tries to follow me home. Scared the F out of me. Called my boyfriend at the time and he quickly came to pick me up and yelled at the dude. I ended up seeing his mugshot online. Looked up his criminal record and he had a whole load of harassment, domestic abuse and a couple rape charges. Some random guy who approached me one morning and asked me out. He gave me major creepy vibes. I'd seen him hanging around outside my building for a while and this was the first time he'd spoken to me. Not long after, I woke up to an intruder in my bedroom. I can't be certain it was the same man, because it was too dark to see the intruder's face clearly enough. But there was enough similarity that it was definitely possible that it was the same guy. And the guy who'd been hanging around disappeared after the break-in. Never saw him again. Prior to that I'd seen him often enough that I thought he'd moved into one of the buildings along that stretch of the road. The fact that he then disappeared was suspicious. What happened with the break-in? Guy I was in the military with killed his girlfriend and 2 children by drowning them. Open bracket. I transported a cannibal once when I was an extradition officer. He said he wanted to eat me, so I bought him a pepperoni pizza and told him he could pretend it's me. Did he eat the pizza? I ate the pizza. You're supposed to give to the customer. When I was in my early 20s, I stopped at a gas station near my apartment after work to grab some beers. When I grabbed the half case from the cooler, I heard a voice behind me say, "Oh, we gonna party good tonight." I turned around, confused, and this older fella grabs the beer from my hand and then puts his arm around my shoulder, like we were old buddies or something. He had a vice grip on me and I was pretty scared. I'm not a small guy, but I was out of shape and this dude was quite strong. He started telling me how he and his girlfriend were gonna come back to my place while he walked me up to the counter. Luckily, I was able to signal the clerk when scary dude looked out the window toward his car. I mouthed "help me" and he nodded. Scary guy had to release his hug on me to get out the door, as we both couldn't fit, and he went out first. I glanced back to the clerk, starting to panic, and he quietly said, "Close the door. I'll lock it." So, as soon as he was through, I pulled it shut and held it, while possibly life-saving clerk locked it with a button behind the counter. Creepy guy was furious when he realized he was locked out and started slamming his fists against the glass door. The clerk yelled he was calling the police and dude actually threw the beer on the ground and jumped in his hoopty and tore out. I thanked the clerk profusely and praised him for thinking quickly. He said unfortunately, since we weren't in the best area in the city, he'd had to use that button before. Scary to think what could have happened. I was planning to stomp as hard as I could onto the top of his foot once outside, and then just run. But who knows how it might have turned out. A senior, when I was a freshman, had a huge crush on me. I didn't mind it at first cause he was pretty chill and just a casual dude I could talk to. Plus I didn't think of him as a threat, since my brother was a senior at our high school and the kid was around my height, 5'1". All of a sudden he started getting really clingy and attached and texted me non-stop. Even when I didn't answer, it got to the point he was leaving love notes and gifts in my locker and at my address, which I had mistakenly given to him back when we were friends planning to hang out at some point. I'd wake up to these signs of affection at my doorstep and at my locker. His first class was next to mine, so he'd always try to block me in the hall and talk to me. It got to the point where he had memorized my schedule and I had to take a different way to my classes each day and pray he didn't guess which route I was gonna take. My family took notice on it and my brother got the kid ostracized from everyone. Not that he wasn't already an outcast of sorts, but was seen as more of a harmless character. My older brother also threatened the kid and said if he ever tried to get close to me again he wouldn't hesitate to stab the kid. This is all especially troubling cause I was 14 at the time and the creepy guy was already 19. Sorry for format. On mobile. When I was 16 chilling in my car during my break at work, a man tapped on my power engine window. I was immediately put off. Like bruv, WTF you doing? But I, kinda stupidly, rolled my window down a crack and asked what's up. He noticed my work uniform and asked me if we had any deals going on. I explained that we did. Cool. That's done. Now he'll leave. Nope. He then asks what I'm doing. I explain I'm on break. He then tells me he's going to the gas station across the street for smokes and asks if I want some. I say no. He leaves. I'm creeped out, but kind brush it off. Break's over. I'm starting to head back when I hear him shouting at me across the park lot. Hey, where you going? He asks. I tell him I gotta go back to work. BC I'm about to open the door and my uniform on. I think it's really fucking weird now, but then he says, oh man, that blows. What time do you get off? Be what? I look my age. If not a year or two younger, and I'm 5'0". I panicked and said oh, I don't know. I get off at different times if we're busy, and book it TF inside. No way in hell was I going to tell him that I get off at 11 at night, and he knows where I parked. I have so many stories about weird fucks back then. TD, doctor, creepy grown man asks me, 16F, what time I get off work after coming up to my car while I'm on break. One of my old coworkers. For some reason she became infatuated with me, which would be fine if she wasn't super fucking creepy about it. She would run up to me and try to hug me every single day. Despite me telling her not to, she took every possible chance to accidentally brush up against me. And she would even leave love letters for me around the lab. Most of these letters contained some form of you are my sunshine or I would die without you. And she never showered. She was pretty overweight. So her B.O. tended to gather up under her boobs, which she loved to accidentally shove in my face or put on my shoulder whenever I was sitting down. I reported her many times. But her mom was the head of ours, so those complaints tended to get lost. Eventually she transferred out after I became a supervisor and told her she needed to act more appropriately in the workplace. And I got written up by ours for being too aggressive. Obviously. Jesus. I'm sorry. I met Tom Cruise at a fancy restaurant in Los Angeles. I was working on their pose and he came in the back and wanted to meet the staff. He did this weird assembly line thing where he gave 9 seconds worth of name repetition and eye contact to everybody. It was like meeting an animatronic puppet being operated by an alien that just arrived on Earth. What do you do here? That's important. I'm happy to have met you. He seemed to already know who I was, even though there's no way for him to have known I was going to be there. He did this song and dance with everybody in the back of house. The weird part was that he seemed to know everybody. He does this thing where he makes a joke then stands next to you and laughs as if somebody else told it to the both of you. I hope somebody else here has met him because this can't be an isolated incident. Celebrities are weird like that. They'll either do us like this or act like the staff doesn't exist. Guy I played hockey with turned out to be a pedophile. Can't say I knew it beforehand, but he was definitely creepy and gave off a bad vibe. Guy I did boxing with, definitely not creepy. Dude was perfectly normal and looked like Ryan Reynolds. He started dating a friend of a friend and he got weird one night asking if they could let their daughter, if they had a future one, join in the bedroom. He knew some illegal websites by just typing in IP addresses. She called the police, told my friend, and looked him up on MySpace. The only other common friend was me. Guy at my high school acted like a total creep. Tried putting his hands on girls. Claimed to have a snake tattooed on his dick. Lo and behold, less than a year after he graduates, he's arrested for exposing himself to a fucking toddler at the library. There was a guy in the training program that I went through for the military that kept a journal where he wrote about how he manipulates everyone in the class to do his will. He fell asleep constantly and eventually got kicked out for STI grades. A few months later a woman comes to interview me because he listed me as a character witness for a clearance he'd applied for. I was honest with her that he creeped the s out of me. Never heard about him again, but I'm worried that I'm on his lipstick list. Did anybody get your reference from Billy Madison? Maybe you. I met this guy, and we hit it off. We went for coffee. Seemed normal, so next date I agreed to meet him at his place and watch a movie, as long as he agreed to give me a ride home. Since buses would not be running after the movie. No problem, he says. Well, I showed up, and he is already half drunk. There goes my ride home. We start the movie, and he is trying to get me to drink, which I decline. He then goes into his bedroom and comes back with his half-hard D out and starts telling me to say hi to Mr. PP and that Mr. PP wants a kiss. I left and got my own taxi home. So fucking disgusting. Sorry you went through this. There was a girl I met in college, and when she introduced herself to my friends and I got the shiver down my spine feeling. Just thinking something's off. Fast forward few months. I'm eating dinner with one of my friends, and she joins us. She starts to share her Harry Potter fanfiction with us, and tells us that she made herself 13 in a relationship with Snape. That really unsettled me. One of my friends caught her going through other people's laundry and sniffing it. I think she ended up getting suspended or expelled because she was killing rats and storing them in her backpack and textbooks, and was pulling them out in lecture and playing with them. Sometimes it's important to trust your initial instinct, and I'm so happy I listened to my instincts. Years ago I worked retail. A coworker's boyfriend came in, and he was just off. He was an ex-felon who had done time for aggravated assault, but coworker kept saying how he was reformed and such a great guy now. Fast forward about 4 years and my old manager calls me. Remember coworker? Well, she got into it with the guy. He hit her. Her 15-year-old daughter tried to stop it. He raped the daughter, killed them both, then went on the run from the cops. One of the most horrible stories I've ever heard. One of the reasons I don't trust that reformed criminal crap. This actually has an update as of today. Found out last year that a drummer I'd worked with back in 2011 was on trial after a bunch of people came forward saying he raped or sexually assaulted them as minors when he was a youth pastor. He was over 18 at the time. Most of the kids were 13 or under, I believe. There were 5 total accusations I know of. Today, he got sentenced to 18 months in prison. To me, it's fucking bullshit. In my state, he was looking at a maximum of 5 years and about $16,000 in fines. He got off way too easy. One of my childhood friends ended up in life for prison for murder. He's not nearly as creepy as a guy in the story emo. When I was 18 I was walking home from my waitress job at 1 AM and listening to music on headphones. Dumb move. A roughly 30-year-old jittery guy ran up behind me and grabbed my arm. I didn't even know anyone was around. He kept asking if I was 14, and I was too confused by the question and situation to respond. Thankfully we were by a busy ice road, so I pulled my arm away and stepped out into the street and began waving my arms. And he ran away. The remaining 30 blocks were more of a silent jog. And that's the last time I walked home from that job. Actually, that is far from the creepiest. I can think of at least 10 more stories like that or worse. What is wrong with people? What is wrong with people? A lot, actually. This guy that used to work night shift at a gas station near my house. He had this creepy serial killer vibe. He would stare with these wide eyes and toothy smile when people walked in, and would make it a point to ask about people's families. He drove an old Nissan hatchback type car that had a broken back window, no rear bumper, and had trash bags for seat covers. I looked into it one night and there was a shovel in the back. I stopped going in there when he was there. He looked kinda like David Koresh but a lot creepier. I asked about him after not seeing him for a few months and the cashier asked me to please not mention him again. Moved a carousel horse to the attic of Robert Burdella in KC with a buddy of mine. We had just graduated high school, so we are around 18. He was big into antiques and such and routinely traded, bought, and sold with my friend's mother who was exclusively into carousel animals from early periods. Probably only thing that saved us is she had called him that day to arrange the delivery, so he would not have had an alibi. Jesus F. King Christ. You win this thread.